every other nation on earth, this title or the thumbnail would be seen as clickbait. People would be like, what the hell are you talking about? 100,000 jobs gone. It is not clickbait. In South Africa, so often when we talk about stuff going wrong, the government is at the heart of the stuff that's going wrong, and it's no different here.
Nice job, team.
So we have a company called, and this name is insane, right? It's ArcelorMittal. That's the company, or at least that's what the company is called. And ArcelorMittal, I'm just going to say ARC for short here, they've been warning the government for a few years now that thanks to government policy and the way stuff is run in this country, they're going to have to close their doors soon. These are massive industries, and they're going to have to close down because they simply can no longer compete against what the company themselves claim is just an unfavorable business environment sort of fostered by the government. So why exactly is this happening, and what exactly does ArcelorMittal even do? ArcelorMittal is an iron or a steel producer in South Africa, and they focus on a lot of different steel products, but one specific one is what is known as long steel. This would be steel that is used in other industries, like, for example, rail tracks or rebar. So in other words, almost all of your manufacturing, railway, and sort of building industries will make use of things like long steel. And this is particularly the part of the business that is currently under massive threat. Ever since COVID, this company has fallen under incredible pressure because the government has consistently made very bad decisions. First, the Department of Trade and Industry decides to introduce a new preferential pricing system. This basically says that scrap sort of buyers, so companies that buy scrap, has to sell it at a lower price to local smelters before they're allowed to export it. On top of that, all exports have a tariff or a duty of 20% charged on top of it. This basically means that scrap exporters don't want to export their scrap because they'll make less money. It's much better to just sell it straight here to companies that smelt the iron and the scrap here in South Africa. The issue here is that those companies, thanks to these new pricing sort of systems, are able to produce items at far cheaper than what ArcelorMittal is able to compete with.
Yeah!
The thing that I've been able to find, because this is very difficult, this is very technical, and I'm not an engineer, but from what I've been able to find, the repurposed steel that comes from these smelting down, or from the smelting down of scrap, isn't of the same quality as the ones made by ArcelorMittal, but considering how slow our economy is moving, the fact that construction, trade, industry has completely died in this country, or at least slowed to a crawl, ArcelorMittal isn't able to produce enough steel, or rather sell enough steel, to compete with all of these other companies, because there's no one building, right? There's no massive construction industry going on. There's no massive reindustrialization going on. And so who are they selling this steel that they're already producing at much higher cost? Who buys this? It gets so much worse when you realize that one of the big things, or one of the big reasons for this, is actually the complete deterioration of Transnet. You see, steel and coal and these, products like this are oftentimes exported by tens of thousands of tons at a time in order to make it cost effective. For that, you can't use trucks, you have to use railway. But what do you do in a country where the railway has been so neglected that most of the trains no longer run? Well, you do what ARC had to do, and that is exported by truck. And ultimately, just thanks to having to move all of this now by truck, has meant lower yields, lower manufacturing, and massively bloated pricing on their long steel products, further complicating matters in a scenario where matters are already massively complicated. Now, they reached out to the government and they asked the government to desperately change some of their policies, specifically looking at things like China and the import of massively underpriced steel from China. Of course, the government did pretty much what they always do. This is insane, by the way. So they approach the minister, Park Tao. Park Tao eventually comes back to them. It takes months for them to actually get the meeting from Park Tao. He finally gets back to them and he schedules the meeting for the 21st of November 2024. The day of the meeting, sources tell Daily Maverick, the minister doesn't even show up.
Nice job, team.
And ultimately, nothing gets decided at that meeting. And fundamentally, this company is suffering. You have private industry helping out, giving money to this company to try and prop them up, to try and help them get over the sort of hurdle of dealing with this. But the government just seems to go, nah, never mind. So when the government actually reaches out to Daily Maverick give them a comment, they basically just do the whole, the steel industry is the critical component of the reindustrialization of South African economy. Efforts will continue to be made to find solutions that will be beneficial to the economy. Of course, they will not stop cheap Chinese imports because they're probably getting massive kickbacks from China. And so China will just continuously flood our market with very cheap and oftentimes very low quality steel. Now, I will just say, if you listen to what this company wants, what ARC wants from the government, they basically want the government to impose 25% import tariffs on all steel coming into the country. This I do not support. I am firmly of the belief that if your company cannot survive on its own, then so be it, right? Thanks for playing. You tried your best. Here, we do have a problem where it's the government's very policies that is destroying this company. It's not the company itself. Now, maybe the company is being run poorly, but at least from what we know at the moment, it is the government destroying this company, not the company destroying itself. And from there, I do actually agree that maybe in the short term, a 25% tariff on steel imports would at least help. But I don't know why we have this preferential price agreement with scrap. I don't know why scrap exports is being taxed so incredibly heavily. And fundamentally, the Eskom problem is another big nail in the coffin because electricity is just too expensive in this country for industries that are already struggling with massively under sort of performing economies to try and survive even further. That's 100,000 jobs that we are standing to lose within the medium term. Medium. Short term, it's going to be between 3.5 and 10,000 jobs. Medium term, so now we're talking 6 months to 12 months, maybe 18 months at the most, we're looking at 100,000 jobs that will go. The long term, no one even knows, because now you're starting to talk about indirect industries of the indirect industries and how they may be affected. So we could potentially look at hundreds of thousands of jobs gone within the next 24 to maybe 36 months as a result of one company closing its doors. That's not even to mention the amount of mines that might go under that can't export at a level that would be beneficial to them, but now also have no one to sell to here in the country. We are in trouble. And it seems like the ANC is hell-bent on making matters worse all the time. Anyways, let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about all of this. Hit the like if you liked, the dislike if you didn't. Please join me over on Patreon. Your continued support helps out a ton. A huge shout out to all of the people that are already subscribed. I'm trying to look into getting investigative journalists that I could employ to try and send them to find the stories that actually matter. So that is something that I'm really looking forward to doing. So your support will go a long way to getting that done. As always, I'll see all of you in the next one. Peace.